Hello everyone, it is great to see you again. Recently, a Chinese startup called Betavolt made headlines by claiming they have successfully developed a miniature nuclear battery capable of generating electricity for 50 years without ever needing a recharge. Betavolt asserts they are the first company in the world to achieve the miniaturization of atomic energy, successfully packing the radioactive isotope nickel-63 into a module smaller than a coin. This news has sparked immense excitement among tech enthusiasts, and I suspect many of you are already dreaming of a future where your phone never runs out of juice. But this isn't the first time Chinese scientists have announced a groundbreaking discovery. So, what is the reality here? What exactly is an atomic battery? How powerful are they, and how close are we to seeing them in commercial products? We will answer all of those questions in this video. First, we need to clarify that nuclear batteries, also known as atomic batteries or radioisotope batteries, are not a brand new invention, nor are they a Chinese discovery. At their core, these devices harness energy, specifically the heat generated by the decay of radioactive isotopes, to produce electricity. In a way, a nuclear battery functions similarly to a nuclear reactor, with one major distinction: it does not rely on a controlled chain reaction. While Betavolt claims their coin-sized battery never needs charging, the reality is that they cannot be charged. Traditional electrochemical batteries, like the alkaline or lithium-ion batteries in your current devices, generate power through chemical reactions. These reactions are reversible, which is why we can plug them into a wall to refill the energy. Nuclear batteries, however, do not involve internal chemical reactions. Therefore, even if you wanted to, there is no way to recharge them. To understand how a nuclear battery works, you first have to understand radioactivity. An element can exist in several different variations called isotopes. These isotopes share the same number of protons but have a different number of neutrons. For instance, uranium-235 and uranium-238 are both isotopes of uranium. They both have 92 protons, but uranium-235 has 143 neutrons, while uranium-238 has 146. The nuclei of these radioactive isotopes exist in an unstable state. They are constantly seeking a way to release excess energy to reach a more stable configuration. You can think of radioactive decay as a process of letting go of that instability. Nuclear batteries are generally categorized into two types. The first type converts the heat generated during the nuclear decay process into electricity. The second type captures energy directly from the radiation emitted before it has a chance to degrade into heat. The principles behind nuclear batteries have been known since the early 1910s. However, it wasn't until the 1950s and 60s, when space missions required long-lasting power sources, that the field received serious research attention. The type of battery that converts decay heat into electricity is known as a radioisotope thermoelectric generator, or RTG. It consists of a rugged container filled with radioactive material, such as plutonium-238, strontium-90, polonium-210, americium-241, or curium-250. As this fuel decays, it generates heat, which is then converted directly into electricity using thermocouples. A thermocouple is made of two different types of metal joined together. If these metals form a closed loop and the two junctions are kept at different temperatures, an electric current is generated. This is known as the thermoelectric effect, or the Seebeck effect. In an RTG, one end of the thermocouple is connected to the hot radioactive fuel, while the other end is connected to a heat sink. Typically, many thermocouples are connected in series to produce a higher voltage. Unlike a nuclear reactor, where heat is produced by a controlled fission chain reaction that can be sped up, slowed down, or shut off using control rods, the heat inside a nuclear battery is generated through natural radioactive decay. This process happens at a fixed, gradually decreasing rate that cannot be adjusted. This means the power output cannot be changed based on demand, and the battery cannot be turned off when not in use. Consequently, the power capacity and lifespan of the battery must be meticulously calculated from the start. If you need high power, you choose an isotope with high radioactivity. If you need a long lifespan, you choose an isotope with a long half-life or simply increase the amount of fuel. RTGs are incredibly reliable, require almost zero maintenance, and provide a steady power supply for the long term, sometimes lasting up to 1,000 years. They can operate in the most extreme environments imaginable, making them perfect for satellites, deep space probes, and remote, unmanned facilities like the lighthouses built by the Soviet Union inside the Arctic Circle. On the flip side, these hot nuclear batteries have significant drawbacks. The most obvious is the risk of radioactive material leaking. Secondly, while they provide a steady stream of power, that power is quite low, usually ranging from a few dozen to a few hundred watts. The Soviet BES-5 device could generate up to 3,000 watts of continuous power, but it was massive, weighing a full ton and containing about 30 kilograms of highly enriched uranium-235. Another downside is the staggering initial cost and the fact that power output diminishes over time. According to Forbes, 1 kilogram of plutonium-238, the most common fuel for RTGs, has a market price of around $8 million. Yet, that kilogram only produces about 35 watts of electricity. The Voyager 1 spacecraft uses 3 RTGs that provided a total of 470 watts at the time of launch in 1977, with a total system cost of about $192 million. To make matters worse, plutonium-238 has a half-life of 88 years. This means by the year 2065, the battery's power will have dropped to 235 watts, and it will continue to decline every single year. The second type of nuclear battery, which is the coin-sized version recently introduced by the Chinese startup, is a cold nuclear battery known as a betavoltaic device. As the name suggests, this battery generates current from beta particles, specifically, electrons emitted from radioactive material. When a neutron in a radioactive nucleus transforms into a proton, it releases a beta particle and an antineutrino. A semiconductor material, such as silicon or gallium arsenide, is used to capture the kinetic energy of these beta particles. As the beta particles pass through the semiconductor, they transfer energy to the semiconductor atoms. When these atoms absorb the energy, electrons are knocked loose from their bonds, becoming free to move into a different energy band and leaving behind a positively charged hole. This is known as an electron-hole pair. The movement of these electrons and holes creates an electric current. This is the fundamental principle behind the coin-sized battery announced by Betavolt. Like their thermal counterparts, these cold batteries can generate electricity for long periods without any maintenance. So, nuclear batteries are real, they are fascinating, and we are about to have 50-year phone batteries, right? Well, not exactly. The principles of nuclear batteries have been known for over a century. Thermal batteries have been in use for 60 to 70 years, and betavoltaic batteries were invented in the 1970s. There is a reason they aren't everywhere yet. Even if you set aside the concerns about radioactivity, which, in the real world, is very hard to ignore, both hot and cold nuclear batteries share a fatal flaw: extremely low power output. Their greatest strength is providing a tiny amount of power for a very long time, nothing more. There have been proposals to use betavoltaic batteries to trickle-charge phone or laptop batteries. The idea is that the nuclear battery would charge the phone at the same rate the phone naturally loses its charge, keeping it at 100% indefinitely. It sounds great in theory. You could leave your phone for a month and find it still fully charged. However, the moment you actually use the phone to listen to music or play a game, the battery would drain just like any other phone. The trade-off would be a much more expensive device and the risk of carrying a potential radiation leak in your pocket, right next to your body. Nuclear batteries were also once proposed for pacemakers, but modern lithium batteries have become advanced enough to handle that job safely. Furthermore, Betavolt isn't the first to successfully miniaturize a nuclear battery. In 2018, Russian scientists developed a prototype nuclear battery, only a few millimeters in size, by sandwiching 2 micrometer thick layers of radioactive nickel-63 between 15 micrometer thick diamond layers, about 1/10 the thickness of a human hair. This tiny battery actually worked, providing an output of about 1 microwatt with a power density of 10 microwatts per cubic centimeter. Its energy density was 3.3 kilowatt-hours per kilogram. Since nickel-63 has a half-life of 100 years, it would take a century for the power output to drop by half. Fast forward to 2024, and Betavolt's battery isn't fundamentally different from what Russian scientists created 6 years ago. According to reports, their betavoltaic prototype, called the Betavolt BV100, is a thin wafer containing a beta radiation source, likely also nickel-63, sandwiched between 2 thin diamond semiconductor layers. Compared to the Russian prototype, the Chinese startup's battery claims 100 times the power, generating 100 microwatts at 3 volts with a 50-year lifespan. However, it is also significantly larger than the 2018 Russian version. The Betavolt battery measures 15 by 15 by 5 mm. That might sound impressive, but using these to power, forever, phones or drones that never land is still a distant fantasy. First of all, nickel-63 is not cheap, it costs about $4,000 per gram. The Betavolt prototype has a volume of 1.125 cubic centimeters and an output of 100 microwatts, which equals a power density of about 89 microwatts per cubic centimeter. For context, the peak power consumption of the CPU and GPU in an iPhone 15 Pro Max is approximately 24.5 watts. To meet that demand with a power density of 89 microwatts per cubic centimeter, an iPhone battery would need a volume of 275,280 cubic centimeters. To help you visualize that, you would be carrying a battery measuring 100 by 100 by 27.5 centimeters. That looks more like a dining table than a phone battery. Fortunately, Betavolt has announced plans to produce 1-watt nuclear batteries by 2025. While that sounds like a major step up, it is still only enough to power the flash on your phone's camera. The BV100 is marketed as being ultra-durable, explosion-proof, and capable of withstanding gunshots, with an operating range from -60 to 120 degrees Celsius. Given their ability to provide continuous energy for decades, these cold nuclear batteries will likely find their niche in spacecraft, medical implants like pacemakers and cochlear implants, or perhaps in microdrones and tiny robots. But if you are still dreaming of a smartphone that doesn't need a charger for 50 years, you are going to be waiting a very long time. But that is just the perspective of VFX. We look forward to hearing your thoughts on this cool-sounding technology in the comments. Goodbye, and see you next time.